there's another aspect of this. I prepared a memorandum related to the situation that Mel has brought up regarding the town council's opinion on this and on our own council's opinion on this. And I have gone through the statements made by council, and I have refuted those in appropriate spots, and I've provided you with that memorandum. And I would ask that go to council for comment, to our council for comment.
I'd just like to remind everybody that every opinion is welcomed at this table, everyone, whether we like it or not.
Even when you make things up?
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing you cannot do here is slander somebody's name. But if you have an opinion, and you're an elected official especially, and you feel you're representing other people's point of view, it's welcome now.
Maureen, Mr. Bowers said that what we have here is the town council is trying to find a way so we can put up signs at the turf field. That's an inaccurate statement, Maureen. That's not what town council did. They interpreted what our policy said. They're not trying to find a loophole to put up signs, and that's inaccurate.
No.
I'm just telling you, he
I
can't
know,
make statements
I know,
like that. That's
but-
slanderous.
But you just need to chill a little bit. You know, certainly, you can call a lawyer and they can feed you what you need to know. Certainly, there are lawyers that will do that.
What you want to hear, not what you need to know.
Yeah, all right, yes, thank you. Thank you. So if he's of that opinion, he's entitled, and you disagree, and certainly
No,
you're
it's
entitled.
appalling, that's all.
Go ahead.
The only thing I want to say is, the school's been there for 50 years. We had the 50th anniversary of the first football game. 50 years we haven't had advertising there. It's, like I said, and Marty, I didn't mean to be, accusatory, but it's not like all of a sudden, geez, you guys say, hey, this is a good idea, let's put some advertising. We have gone through this and talked about it, and it's come up many, many times before. And for some reason, we've chosen as a committee, and committees before us have chosen not to do this. So it's a sensitive issue with us. And basically, again, what I'm saying is it needs to be a collaborative effort. If we decide to do it, there seems to be an inclination by some members to do it and some members not to, and I'm getting a funny feeling I might be the swing person on this. But the bottom line is we need to work together on it as to what type of advertising, where the revenue's gonna go, what it's gonna look like, where it's gonna be located. I mean, does that make sense to you? That we might be uncomfortable with just saying, go ahead, guys, sell your advertising, hang it up, and make as much money as you can, because Cliff has said it, we haven't done that before, and now all of a sudden we're saying, okay, let's do it, because we happen to have a turf field instead of a grass field there.
No,
Go ahead.
no.
then I will
We
wrap it
agree,
up.
and that's why we came before you, because we have all three policies. What was given to town council was the question, can we advertise? And we gave them all three copies of the policy, and if I read it, you're a lawyer, and you might read it differently, we read it, and every one of them, it opens it up, it says, assigned policy is there. At the time of
But what
the-
you're saying
Can I finish,
is-
please? I'm sorry, at the time of the memorandum of understanding, this is the one that was handed to us.
The
most
memorandum of
recent-
understanding is a document
Right,
that
the
has
most-
3 different parties to it,
Right,
and there
right.
are all kinds of issues in that memorandum of understanding
it-
that
no,
we
but-
don't necessarily want to be butting heads on and asking town council for opinion on. What I'm saying to you, readers, whether or not they say it's allowed, do you agree that we have to have some comfort level?
Absolutely, and that's why we asked the meeting two months ago. I assumed we were probably gonna go through that thing, that council, through our meeting that we have and talk about what the items were and what they would look like. But the second email that we got back was, there's no sign permitting allowed. And I said, that's not what we understood it to say on the memorandum of understanding.
I think the first issue is whether or not it's allowed, and that may have already been answered. The second issue is going to be whether or not, if it's allowed, the school committee's comfortable with it, and if we're comfortable with it, are we gonna be able to work together to implement it? That's the way I see it. I mean, I don't want something shoved down our throat, because,
That's why we asked to come before the committee.
okay, all right.
And so you're here, and so now I'm gonna weigh in on a couple of my concerns. I'm not convinced it's allowed under the town bylaw. And with all due respect to the building inspector, he is the enforcer. The policy board is CPC. But I'm gonna backtrack and say, I have some legal question that needs to be answered, and it's not gonna come from the building inspector or anyone here. And it has to do with the bylaw that says accessory of use. An accessory of use means
Can I just ask whose bylaw it is though? I don't
The
know.
town's bylaw.
Thank you.
Accessory use means a structure on the same lot with and of a nature customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use of the structure. So whether I want to move forward or I don't, I'm not going to say. I'm putting out there that we don't have clarity on the town's bylaw pertaining to accessory of use. And that's what the building inspector is saying will allow us to put a sign up there. So when I stop, and not only do I think that this definition would prohibit it, but I stop and I wonder if this town bylaw were to be interpreted differently and it allowed signage. Now I have to consider as a school committee member the ramifications that not only would it allow you to move forward under our policy guidelines, but would it then allow the athletic boosters to petition to put signs up for their fundraising efforts along Frank Carey's baseball, which is on the inside? Would it even allow Bachelor Parent Organization to request what is prime space, the batch fence on the intersection? Now, some could say, no, yes, that's Hillview property, this is school property. But then another voice says, as a town, because it's a town bylaw, would we be looking at some kind of discrimination suit by allowing one group access to the fence that's below the bleachers over here, but not another group that's the short stubby fence over here at the baseball field, and no to another group that's over here on a nice highly visible fence? I don't know, but I know one thing. I don't want to interpret it and down the road cause a problem for the town, legal problems, which cost us money. So whether I am in favor of a totally commercial-free zone, or I'm in favor of loosening the definition so that we can get some needed funds, I can't get beyond the point that says I need a legal interpretation of the town's bylaw pertaining to accessory of use, and once I have that definition, I have ramifications to then think through. So I think that's a very fair place for this committee to stop and pause and say, let's get that answer. And that has to do with the town's bylaw. And should it all come out in your favor, we would move to step 2, which, according to the agreement, says we then operate within the school policy guidelines. And then we have another problem. The school policy guidelines say no. So if we were in agreement to move forward, we would need to establish guidelines. And they would look very much like what Rita read earlier, in which I think we all share core values that would support those, Rita. No alcohol, no tobacco, no religious significance or support, no political signs. We know what we want as a community. But let's even step back a little bit and say, okay, no alcohol, that's a given. You're not going to see Budweiser signs up there. But does an alcohol store sponsored by ABC Liquor Store, does that support alcohol? To some people, they would say, no, that's just the store. But other people would say, that's a store that sells alcohol. So should we get to that place where the school committee is writing guidelines, we would certainly want to hear from the community on what kind of guidelines we want to establish. I don't think this takes a rocket scientist. I think it takes another question to our lawyers as far as the bylaws go. And then when it comes down to the community, I think it's as simple as an input session, or, let us know how you feel we're writing these guidelines. We incorporate that input over the course of 7 days you have to submit to us. We give it to the subcommittee, and they have a meeting, and within a week, we're sitting here again establishing guidelines. So those are my 2 hurdles, that whether I would move forward or I would put the brakes on. I can't move past needing to know step 1 and step 2. And I would just really appreciate if we could all take the time to answer those very specific questions, because yes, we been dancing around this for a couple of months, and believe it or not, we have made leeway. Because this conversation has never happened in 50 years, and we're having it. And we're frustrated, but we're having it. So for us to pause for a few more weeks and get specific answers and write something that reflects the community, I think it would do us all good. Because there will be long-term ramifications. If this bylaw does not define accessory of use in this way, then this could redefine signs on all town property and all private. So if an accessory to use allows me to put a sign on my front lawn advertising Moynihan lumber, so I can raise funds to pay my mortgage, I'm putting one up. So with that kind of bizarre example out there, I would just appreciate if you could respect the kind of ramifications that are swimming through my mind and the questions that I need
Can I
answered.
just make two comments?
Absolutely.
I agree with Maureen that, to me, it comes down to the accessory of use and how that's defined. I disagree 100% that our policy does not allow it, because it says either in school buildings or on school grounds, and this turf field is not school buildings, and it is not school grounds. And if we're gonna get something else reviewed by attorneys, then we should get that reviewed, because I don't think we have a leg to stand on. It's not a school building or a school ground. The other thing is, we control the schools, we control the Batchelder fence, we control the high school. We just say, no advertising. Parks and Rec and Hillview in partnership control the turf field now. So they're coming to us and saying they want to advertise. Now, if our superintendent wants to say no, then the superintendent at some point can say no, but I don't think our policy applies because it's not school, what does apply is the kind of advertising. So that's my concern with our policies. I don't think one of them applies anymore.
Yeah, I agree that the policy says that, if we get to that point, then you submit your list to the superintendent. But, the superintendent needs guidelines in which to operate. And so the type of guidelines I would expect to see put down in writing are the ones that Rita mentioned. That's not in writing. That's the values that we share, that we would not do that, not just to the kids, but to the community. But they're not written down. They're not in a policy. And, we're gonna hire a good superintendent, but to say to a superintendent, you decide, it's not fair to them and the community wouldn't expect it of us. So I understand
No, I
that
agree
it
with
says we
that, too.
can, I just think we need some guidelines.
Can I just respond to that, Maureen,
Yes.
please? Okay. I'm, in a copy of the memorandum of understanding, which is a legally binding document that was signed by all
Yeah.
parties involved, do you have the actual phrase where it says, is this what I want to read right here? That's not it, right?
No, that's fine.
You keep talking about rewriting guidelines. I don't know what new guidelines, how they would apply, because as far as the memorandum of understanding says, the guidelines are there already. We've already legally bound ourselves to the guidelines in the memorandum of understanding. And it says, if we do decide, signs and banners, it says it right here. Can I borrow your glasses?
I'll answer that for you. I mean guidelines that the school committee would give to the superintendent on which he would make his approval.
No, he can't do that. Legally, he has to make his approval upon the guidelines that are in the memorandum of understanding, not new guidelines that the school department decides to rewrite.
There,
It's, when you sign a legal document, Maureen,
I understand.
which refers to a policy that's currently in existence, it's my belief that you no longer can go now change that policy and say, okay, sorry, we decided to change our mind, doesn't matter that, you signed this document anymore. You can't do that. So how do you rewrite the guidelines? The policy is in place, it says right here, in the memorandum of understanding. All company benefactor logos appearing on district property shall be for product or sponsor only for identification purposes. Signs, and I'm quoting, signs, banners, or other items bearing the company logo shall be approved by the school department prior to display. The size and period of display should be identified as part of the approval process. And it keeps going on according to your policies. It's your policies that were in place when this document was signed. You cannot rewrite the policy.